right, it is time. I know everybody's been waiting. You know what it's time for?
Soul Session.
All right. We're going to talk about essentials because we're giving away Avedon Essentials and we're giving away Essentials Fear of God t-shirt. And when I say essentials, we're going to talk about what is essential to certain areas of our lives in order to succeed. So be thinking about that, okay? Those of you in the chat and my producers over there, I want you guys to help me out. So I'm going to give you mine and then you think. First of all, what's essential in your spiritual life? To have a good, a growing, because that might be I think that's probably priority of our life. In other words, if we want to have a happy life, if we want to succeed in all that we do, then we need to have a successful spiritual life. So what's essential to a healthy spiritual life?
Are you asking now?
Yes, I'm asking.
I'd say faith, confidence in God. That'd be pretty essential in our faith.
All right. Okay. I put
Wrong.
No, that's good. That's
one
good.
way to answer.
No, that's good. I mean, right. So in order to have that, right, in order to have that faith in God, that sense of spiritual health, I think it's the basic ones are prayer, right? You got to talk to God. I put, and I don't really know, a lot of times people call it like quiet time. I almost like call it hangout time, because to me it's connecting with God, reading some scripture. And I've never agreed. Let me know what you guys think. All right. Like sometimes people who teach, whether it be on the weekend or they teach small groups or Sunday school or at whatever, I've always heard my whole life, don't count your preparation as your quiet time. But I've never really agreed with, to me, if you're hanging out with God, you're hanging out with God. It's like if Steph and I are hanging out, it doesn't matter what we're doing. We're spending time together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if we're mowing the yard. To me, that's like saying, well, if we're mowing the yard, that can't really be our time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just slowing down and reflecting on God might not be you're not mowing the yard or you're not preparing something. I'm not saying you don't ever do that. But to me, there is value in hanging out with God whenever you do it and however you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Especially if that preparation is revolving around God.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it for sure, if, that preparation becomes more about, how can I say this, to sound really good or to, come across a certain way. But, I think when it revolves around him, then that time is spent with him. And so it's not like, okay, well, that's wasted or not wasted time, but it's like that time doesn't go into building our relationship. It still does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Joseph has one there that I think often gets forgotten, and which is community. And I put it as church and community.
Yeah.
Because I think that God created the church to not only teach us, but for community. And I think a lot of times, that's why I think people devalue it, and because if you know that we're gathering together for a sense of community, that my relationship with God, my health, my spiritual life, health is going to be impacted greater, but within community, then the priority of God's house is going to go up, as opposed to I'm just going to learn, or I'm just going because I'm supposed to, or I'm just going because I need something. As realizing that there's a sense of community that impacts every area of your spiritual life. So I think that's a really good one that often gets forgot when people think about spiritual life, hanging with God or quiet time, praying, journaling, all those things, but they often forget how important community is and how often it's in the scripture.
Yeah.
So I agree with that as well. So that's important because those things are essential to our spiritual lives. And because if we try to be spiritual without those things, then we become fake and false and unhealthy.
Yeah.
All right. The next area that I put down is relationships. So what's essential to having healthy relationships?
Communication.
Yeah, I put that. I put listen / communication. Because that's the hardest part of communication.
Absolutely. What am I saying
yeah.
next?
Yes, yes. All right. What else do you guys have when it comes to relationships?
I can't ignore it.
Let me take a drink of water.
Yeah.
Time,
Oh,
because time is, you can't. Time is important.
yeah.
Every kind of time. Quality time, unquality time.
There we go. All three of those.
Well, I drink.
good?
Y'all are supposed to talk.
You good now?
You're not supposed to just look at me while I drink. All right, communication, time, authenticity. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
I think when you think about relationships, not just like a man and woman or husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, but friendships, all of our relationships take those things: time, communication. I think loyalty. I think relationships take loyalty. It's hard to trust somebody that is not loyal to you.
Yeah.
And I think loyalty sometimes means challenge. You know what I mean? Like if I'm loyal to my friends and my family, then that means I'm going to challenge them if I think, as opposed to not challenge them, because then it becomes more about me than the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think therefore you kind of have to get out of your comfort zone. Vulnerability is a good one as well. Anything else that comes to your mind when you think about those essential things to our relationships?
Several people in the chat have said trust as well.
Yeah, which I think comes as a result of loyalty. You know what I mean? Trust is vital and essential. But in order to get trust, you have to have commitment or loyalty, whatever word you want to use there. Yeah. So you think you got your spiritual life, you got your relationships, and then the other one that I put, and somebody else might put things in different order, but I put health. So what's essential to healthy health?
Healthy health.
Discipline.
Okay, discipline's a good one.
Flintstone vitamins.
Yeah.
Now
Antioxidants.
There you go.
That helps.
Greg Avedon Essentials.
Yes, exactly.
Mental health. You'd need Potential, the book.
There you go.
So
There you go. Yeah, so I think when it comes to health, relationships are essential to being healthy.
yeah.
If you don't have, I was listening to a neuroscientist who had quit doing neuroscience stuff. Basically what he said he did is he became a doctor and he did spine surgery. And since I have a bunch of messed up disc, I was listening to him and he said one of the things, he said some people got better and some people didn't. And he listed the things that the people who got better did. And he basically talked about a lot of these things. And one of the things he talked about was they had support people, they have healthy relationships. And I think unhealthy people have unhealthy relationships. And I think it's not because they're unhealthy. I think a lot of times, that we're unhealthy because our relationships are not healthy.
Yeah.
And then like you guys are saying, exercise and nutrition. One that I'm not very good at, sleep. Everybody tells us that. I mean, I don't know that. I'm not a scientist, but they say that sleep is really, really important. And one I put down that people, let's see if you agree with me. To being healthy health, to having healthy health.
Yeah.
I put down the physician and the dentist. I think we live in a time.
Come on.
Well, I think we live in a time. What'd you say?
I love the dentist.
Do you love
like
the
no
dentist?
joke?
Do you?
I love going to the dentist.
He knows I don't. So I think that's why he said, curious how you feel.
Let me give you, and then you can disagree. But I think because the day in which we live, and and one of the differences between when it comes to like even finances, is if you struggle financially, statistically, folks don't take advantage because it costs more to go to the doctor, to go to the dentist, and that negatively impacts their health. I mean, I know for example, when I was struggling with I was just kind of out of breath and my heart I just felt weird. Had I not went to the doctor, I don't think I'd be alive. And I had to push. The first time I went to the doctor, he's like, I'm sure, and then he'd send me to the cardiologist, and I'll go to the cardiologist, and I'm sure you're okay. And I'm like, I told Steph, I said, I just don't feel right. So I went back and he's like, oh my gosh, we can do a stress test. So we did a stress test and that came back fine. And I still didn't feel right. So I went back to him and he's like, you know, you could tell, he's like, I think you're fine, but if you want to, we'll do an angiogram because that tells like 99% whether everything's okay. And I'm like, well, okay. Then I'll know if I'm just a hypochondriac
Being soft.
or, you know, what it is. So they did the angiogram and they come back and Steph and I are, you know, in the recovery room and they're like, oh my gosh, you were right. You wouldn't have had a heart attack. He said, your heart would have exploded. So they put me in the ambulance. They took me to a different hospital and then they did, you know, all the stuff. So I just know I think going to the doctor, I don't mean like a hypochondriac, but I think it's important. Yeah. And I think if you have the opportunity to do that because of the time or the job you have and the health insurance you have, because sometimes people just don't want to go to the doctor. And I think you put yourself at risk that you don't have to. That doesn't mean that, you know, some doctors are over aggressive maybe. It doesn't mean doctors are always right or the dentist is always right. But I think it's important to do your checkups.
I haven't gone to a primary in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
No.
So he really agrees with you. Yeah. He really stands behind it.
But I'm all for it.
Right, but
I love the dentist.
I think that's the mindset of a lot of, but we don't see it.
Yeah.
We don't look at it as a sense of, if I want to be healthy and I want to succeed and I want to love my kids and love my wife, then I need to go and take care of that. And it doesn't mean that I need to go every time I get the sniffles, but some kind of yearly checkup. You know, like I know Steph is very serious about all her checkups because her sisters had breast cancer. You know what I mean? And when you catch things early, you can actually do something about it. It's like prostate cancer, colon cancer. You can do things with those. But if you don't catch them, am I making you feel guilty yet, Nick?
No, Dallas said, come on, Nick.
All right, yes. Because if you don't catch them early, then you have to deal with the reality of that.
Yeah.
You know? Now, if you know, people get sick, things happen, no matter how good you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think those things are important to do if you want to stay healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I experienced that this really past year with the injuries to the calf and the heel and all that, because it's been hurting for a long time, just kind of ignored it. And then it gets to a point where it does affect your work, you know, things that you want to do that you can't do because of it hurting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where had I have taken care of it at the time, never would have gotten to that point. So, you know, it's that thing that you've said many times of pay now or pay later. Mm. And I think it comes down to that. You know what I mean? There's a payment. A physical payment, you know, a copay, whatever your insurance looks like. But then there's also a time payment and, you know, all of that, and maybe being a little uncomfortable, depending on what kind of checkup it is. But you're going to pay regardless. Mm-hmm. And so it's definitely better to make that payment on the front end, so you're not tearing your calf in front of a bunch of kids looking like an idiot.
And then your dad has to teach because you were supposed to teach. It was Thanksgiving weekend.
Something like that.
But I forgot.
For this hypothetical, that's never happened.
But it could.
It could. To you out there.
All right, last one. So you got spiritual, you got relationship, you got health, and then, of course, you have work and career. What are the essentials to succeed in your work and career?
Discipline.
Discipline, that's a good one. I put passion. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just love that our finance person here at Potential Church is telling Pastor Nick he has great insurance and he needs to use it. That is quite humorous.
I utilize the dental.
Let's follow
full potential.
Let's follow up on him. We'll do it together. All right. I put personal growth. You know, you got to grow. You got to get better. Your work ethic. Do more than you get paid to do.
Yeah.
Own more than you get paid to own. Risk-taking, confidence. Those are some of the essentials. In other words, to succeed in life, you just got to do the essentials. Mm. You know what I mean? There are some basic things that lead to success that anybody can do.
Yeah.
You just got to do them.
Yeah.
And you can have good relationships. You can have a great relationship with God. You can have better health. You know, I mean, we all have certain things that are a part of our life, but and then we can succeed at what we've been called to do to a certain point. And that's a great way, I think, when we talk about potential, the book, right? We're talking about being everything God's created us to be, as opposed to have to stand before him and say, hey, I didn't take care of that part of my life and I didn't value it. And because that's what most people do. They don't value it. I mean, if you think about it, we put at the top spiritual life, and not only for people, but for us, that's easy to move down. We say it needs to be the most important, but it's easy if we're not careful for us to think we'll take care of that later as opposed to this afternoon
Yeah.
or this morning or whenever.